Hi, everyone. So I'm going to ask you a question about reading. Have you ever been reading something and then you feel frustrated because you don't understand what you're reading? Or you feel bored because you don't enjoy what you're reading? Or maybe you feel like the whole thing is pointless because you can't relate to the people in the story or the events in the story. So what's the point in even reading it, right? We've all been there. Luckily, there is a strategy, a reading strategy, that is going to solve those problems for us. This strategy is called Notice and Note, and we are going to be learning about and practicing this strategy over the next several days. Um, Notice and Note is meant to help you notice the important parts of a story and then take note of any questions you might have about those important parts or any observations you might be making about those important parts. And by doing this, by noticing and noting, right, the important things in a story, you're now interacting with a story. And that just makes the whole reading experience not only more enjoyable, but more useful. All right. So within this strategy of notice and note, there are 6 signposts. Today, I'm going to give you a quick overview of these signposts and what the heck a signpost is in the first place. And then, like I said, over the next really couple weeks, we're going to be looking at each individual signpost separately. So first of all, what is a signpost? A signpost is just an important thing that stands out in a story. So it's something worth noticing and it's something worth noting your reaction. What is your reaction? Do you have questions about this important thing that you noticed? Do you have observations? Do you have thoughts and ideas about it? Right? So these 6 signposts are the important things that you want to notice while you're reading. The first signpost is called contrasts and contradictions. So very quickly, in a nutshell, I guess, contrasts and contradictions is when a character does something that contrasts with what you expect them to do, or they say something that's the opposite of something they said earlier. When they're acting or speaking in a way that's the opposite or very, very different than what they have in the past or what you expect them to do, this is contrast and contradiction. You should stop and notice this. And then you should ask yourself, why is the character doing that? Why are they doing this thing that is just the opposite of what they said they were going to do, or what they would normally do, or what you would expect them to do? The answer to that question is going to help you make predictions about what might happen next, and it might help you draw inferences. And we've been working on drawing inferences, and it's not easy, right? It can be tough, but noticing these contrasts and contradictions might help you do that. We'll get into that deeper on another day. The second signpost is called Words of the Wiser. So, Words of the Wiser is very simply when a character, someone who's probably older and wiser, takes the main character aside and offers them some serious advice. All right. Now, sometimes this is a big dramatic moment in the movie or in the book or the story or whatever. And sometimes it is just a little line or two. So you have to be on the lookout for it. Um, when you recognize it, someone's getting advice from someone who's wiser, stop and ask yourself, what is the life lesson that's being taught here? All right, what is this wiser person trying to teach this other character? And how might it affect the character? Is the character going to take that advice to heart and change their ways? Is this going to change the story completely? How is this going to change a relationship in the story? Right? What might happen because of it? And once you can identify this advice that the words of the wiser, the advice that the older person is giving, this might help you identify the theme of the story. And theme is important because theme is basically the universal truth within a story. So, universal truth. Let's see. So, universal means it applies to everyone. So, it doesn't matter your gender, your race, your age. It doesn't matter if you're living now, if you lived 1,000 years ago, if you live 1,000 years from now. it's just a human truth, right? About the human experience. So we can all relate to these themes because we're people and these universal themes are about people. All right. But identifying the theme can be tricky, and noticing these words of the wiser can help you do that. And they can help you kind of see yourself in the story. All right. More on that later. The third signpost in Notice and Note is aha moment. So this is when a character realizes or understands or they finally figure out something, right? Maybe it's something that you, the reader, knew all along, and you're like, when is he going to figure this out? Or maybe it's something you didn't know, and you're having an aha moment too, and you're like, what? Right? So it can be either way. But when the character has this aha moment, you should ask yourself, how is this going to change things? Now that the character knows this, how is this going to change the story? How is this going to change the character's relationships with other people? How is this going to change what the character does next? Right? Or how they feel about someone or something, right? So now they've had this aha moment, something's going to change. What might that change be? I don't know. Got to keep reading to find out. All right, number 4 is called Again and Again. So this signpost is something you should notice when a word or a phrase or a situation is repeated over and over again. And this can really be anything. It could be a color is repeated over and over again. It could be a number repeated over and over again. It could be an item, right? Something that just keeps coming up. Why do they keep talking about M&Ms? I don't know. Well, maybe M&Ms are going to be really important later. All right, so when you notice something being repeated again and again, you should stop and ask yourself, why does this keep happening? Why does the author keep using the same word over and over again? Why does this item keep popping up in the story over and over and over again? And the answer to that is going to help you maybe figure out the theme or understand the conflict. Or sometimes, and this is really fun, it will foreshadow what might happen later in the story. So when we look more closely at Again and Again, we can look at examples of those. The 5th signpost we're going to talk about over the next few days is called a memory moment. So when the author interrupts the action to tell you about a memory. So this is like a flashback, right? You're probably familiar with these already. We see them a lot in movies, TV shows. They show up in books and stories all the time as well. You should stop and ask yourself, when you see one of these memory moments or a flashback, ask yourself, why might this memory be important? Right? The answer might tell you about the theme or the conflict. It might foreshadow something. Now that I know that this character had this experience in their past, how is it going to affect what they're doing now in the present or later in the future? All right, so why is this memory important? And then the 6th and final signpost that we're going to dig deeper into is called tough questions. So when a character asks himself a very difficult question, right? They're being introspective. They're asking themselves the tough questions. You need to stop and ask yourself, what does this question make me wonder about? All right. What am I wondering about? This is going to help you relate to the story because you can ask yourself the same or a similar question, right? Because probably the tough question is something to do with the human experience. And so we're all human, so we can relate. But it also might give you some insight about the conflict. It might help you make predictions about what's going to happen later. All right, so in a nutshell, a very short and quick overview of Notice and Note. These 6 signposts are meant to help you understand a story, enjoy a story, and see yourself in the story. Because ultimately, every story we read is about people, and you are a person. So every story is about you.